Right. Very good evening to you all. We have completed the operating system, right? We discussed, or we have taken enough time for discussing the things about operating system. You need to remember some of the most important things about operating systems. You have to remember maybe the definition for OS. You must understand, or you must remember some of the examples for OS used in mobile devices as well as in computers. More importantly, you must remember the types of operating systems, right? Single user, multi-user, those must be in your mind. And finally, the other important thing is the services or the functions of operating system. Remember, there are two types of services. One is managing the hardware. The other one is providing user interfaces. There are two user interfaces: graphical user interface, command line interface. There are many hardware management activities. I have pointed some of the most important management: file management, memory management, security management, device management, process management, and file management, right? So you have to remember all these hardware management things, right? So with those things, the operating system, this unit number 5, even though the title for unit number 5 is mentioned as operating system, that unit number 5 includes the system softwares, right? Not only operating system, there may be some other things. So we have just completed operating system, but still there are some other system softwares to be discussed, right? So I think in the last class, I started to explain the system software, another system software called utility software. So what is utility? It is a software, or it is a collection of software used for enhancing the performance of the computer, right? Whenever you want to enhance the performance of your computer, you have to use utility programs. It is not a single program. There may be many utility programs. Every utility program increases the performance, right? In different way, they increase the performance of the computer, right? So today we will take some of the most important utility programs and see their functions, or see how they work, right? Right, so have a look at this. Utility programs or utility software which are used to improve the performance of the computers are utility programs, right? They are very useful for maintaining the computer, because increasing the performance or enhancing the performance is always related to maintenance, right? So whenever you want to maintain your computer for longer period and also with the high performance, high efficiency, you have to use, or you must use, utility programs, right? There are a number of utility programs, but we have to discuss some of the most important utility, right? Here I have mentioned only few, but remember there are many utility programs used in computers, right? So first one, disk partitioning software, I will explain, right? I will explain the term. Disk defragmenter, disk formatting software, disk cleanup software, antivirus software, disk scanner software, system diagnosis tools, screensavers, and backup software, right? So everything is a program, everything is a software, but everything contributes in a different way, right? For every utility program contributes for maintaining your computer, right? So let's take them one by one. So I must tell you one thing at the beginning. Even though we have a big list, or we have a list, we need to focus on 3 utility softwares, right? Remember, you need to understand 3 utility software little bit in detail, right? Not as depth, but you have to remember these 3 in detail. The first one, disk partitioning software or disk partition, I will explain. Second, disk defragmenter. Third, disk format. Right? These 3 are important for examinations. That's why I put these 3 on the top. But the others may not be important. But if you can remember their function, it would be good for your exams, right? But the first 3 are very important for exams. Okay. Right. So let's take the first one, disk partition. Look here, I have put an action as a title, right? This is not the software name. Software name would be disk partitioning software. But now we are going to discuss about an action, right? It's a verb. Look at this. It's a verb. Disk partition, right? So look here. In unit number 2, we all studied about hard disk, right? So you know, hard disk is a secondary storage device. It can store a large amount of data permanently in your computer, right? So even I have a hard disk in my computer, right? So if you have computer, you may have hard disk too, right? I have one hard disk in my computer. Most of us have one hard disk, but it is possible to have more than one hard disk, right? But if it is a personal computer, mostly we have one hard disk in a computer, right? Listen to me. So one hard disk in a computer can be divided into multiple, right? Not physically, because you cannot break your hard disk into pieces, right? So if you break into pieces, you know, they never work. So even though you have one physical hard disk, that one physical hard disk can be divided into multiple parts logically. The term logic means, actually it is not real, but it seems that they are divided into 3. But for us, it looks like 3 parts, 3 physical parts, but they are in fact not 3 physical parts. They seem that they are 3 parts. That is the meaning of logical parts. So one physical hard disk is divided into multiple parts. This action is called partition or disk partition. I repeat it. We have one hard disk in our computer, one physical hard disk. To get some benefits, we divide that single hard disk into multiple parts, right? This action, dividing a single hard disk into multiple logical parts, is called disk partition. Try to understand the term logical. It is actually not I mean real, but it looks like that it is real, right? But actually we cannot divide that physical hard disk into multiple, right? So this is partitioning. Look at the definition which I have given. Dividing a physical hard disk into multiple logical parts is disk partition. If you are unable to understand anything, wait until I finish, right? So it would be easy if I go through, right? Then only you can understand. So look at the second one. Normally, partitioning is performed at the time when a hard disk is configured for the first time. So see, when you purchase a computer or when you set a new hard disk, right? At that particular time, this hard disk is divided into multiple parts, right? So when you insert a new hard disk, or in other words, when you purchase a new computer, before you start using your computer, you have to partition your hard disk, right? You have to divide your single hard disk into multiple parts, right? So first of all, even though we define the word partition, you have to understand the reason for partition. So we all divide the single hard disk into multiple parts. Why? There should be a reason, right? There should be one or more reasons for partitioning, right? Let's see the reasons first. Okay, before that, I will show these 2 diagrams I have extracted from your book. Look here, right? So I think most of you, or almost all of you, remember the parts of a hard disk, right? Internal hard disk. We already studied in unit number 2 which part of the hard disk store the data. A hard disk may have so many parts, right? There is platters there, right? A spindle there, right? Actuator arm, actuator. So which part of the hard disk is responsible for storing the data? It is platter, right? I mentioned that platter is nothing. It's a metal plate. There may be more than one platters available in a single hard disk, right? Not in all the hard disks, but some hard disks have more than one platter, right? So I'm talking about platter. This is platter. If it is a new hard disk, you know, your platter looks like this. It's a plain platter. There is no division, or there is no small cells formed. It looks like a plain thing. But when it is partitioned, right? So the first one, right? Listen to me. The first one is before partition. This diagram is before partition. But once your hard disk is partitioned, then it looks like this. Look at this, that plain circle, right? Plain circle is divided into two. Look at this area, right? This area is one part, right? So here, according to this picture, it is named as C. This is one part of this hard disk. The other part, look at that inner circle, that is the other part, right? You have another part, this part. This is also labeled as D. So one single surface, right? This single surface has been divided into two different surfaces. They are labeled as C as well as D, right? So even though in a physical hard disk, this kind of a setup is not actually, created, but we assume that in a physical hard disk, partitions will look like this, right? But in fact, reality is not like this, right? But we assume that hard disk is divided into parts. Okay, right? Why partitioning? What is the reason for performing partition? There may be many reasons, or not actually many, but there may be few reasons. But I have taken three major reasons for partition, right? The first one. So look here. Take a look at your table or something, right? Assume that you have a table which has drawers, right? So what happens if that table has only one drawer? You have to assume that drawer is slightly big, right? But one drawer, it is one big drawer. So now what has to be done? You have to put your books, maybe your other stuff like pencils or pens or markers, right? Whatever, right? All the stationery items that you use must be kept inside of that single box, single drawer. Yes, you can keep, but remember, whenever you need one stationery, like a pen or maybe a marker or maybe an exercise book or whatever, is it easy to search or easy to find? No, right? Because all this stuff are kept inside of one big drawer. So it may be very difficult to find something. Similarly, assume that you have a hard disk. Yes, that hard disk has high capacity, but if the hard disk is if the hard disk has only one location, you have to store all of your data, right? Pictures, videos, audios, your softwares, your operating system. So whatever, right? Whatever the data you like to save in your computer must be saved in that one big location. So tell me, is it easy to find a particular data when it is required? No, right? It looks like your table drawer. So when it comes to table drawer, we faced problems or difficulties in searching a book or searching a pen. Similarly, If you have one hard disk or one location, and if you saved all these items in a single area, it might be very difficult to find it. But what would be the ideal way to find the data easily? You need to divide your hard disk into multiple parts. Look, so take my table again. So if that particular drawer is divided into 3 small drawers, assume that big drawer has been divided into 3 or 4. So maybe in first small drawer, you may put your pencils or pens. In the second drawer, you can put your markers. Maybe in other drawer, you can put your color pencils or something. Maybe in the other drawer, put your exercise books. So if you arrange in this manner, whenever you need a specific data, you don't need to spend much time in searching, right? So you can straight away take it. It would be better if you paste a label on the drawer, right? Like pencils, color pencils. So definitely you can easily find a particular data. Similarly, here, if I divide a hard disk into multiple parts, right? Like 3 parts or 4 parts, then you can systematically arrange your data. Maybe in one part, you can store your videos and audios. In another part, you may store your images. Maybe in another part, you can put your study materials. Maybe in another part, you can put your programs or softwares. So this may be the first reason. Look at this, to save different data in separate locations, right? To save different data, image, video, audio, right, in separate locations. Have you understood? That may be one of the most common reason for partition. We all partition our hard disk to get this benefit, right? So I assume that you can understand, because even in a day-to-day life, we face or we arrange this kind of method, looks like a table or whatever, we arrange it, right? So that is one reason, right? Then when more than one operating systems are used in a computer, I already told you in the previous classes that it is possible to install more than one operating systems in your computer. Of course 2, of course 3. It is possible because sometimes we feel that one operating system cannot give all the benefits for the user. Yes, it can work, right? It helps the computer to work, right? With one operating system you can manage, but to get some more benefits, sometimes you want another operating system. So definitely you need to install 2, sometimes 3, right? Okay, assume that you want to install 2 operating systems. But if your hard disk is not partitioned, I will show you the partitions of my computer later. So some of you have some of you have ideas, but some of you don't have ideas. So wait until I show those partitions, right? So I come to the point now. So if my hard disk is not divided into multiple parts, you know that hard disk is one, right? There is only one location. So now in one location, you cannot save or you cannot install 2 operating systems, right? What I'm trying to tell you is, if your hard disk is not divided, you know the part is one, right? You have only one location. So if you want to install 2 operating systems, definitely you need 2 partitions or 2 parts. But having one partition or one location is not sufficient for installing 2 operating systems. So for installing more than one operating system, maybe 2, maybe 3, definitely what is important? Partitions are important. To install 2 operating systems, definitely you need at least 2 partitions. Of course, you can create more than 2 partitions, but at least 2 partitions are important to install 2 operating systems. Have you understood? That may be the second reason for partitioning when we have more than one operating systems. The third one, right? The third one, OS needs a separate partition, right? Operating system needs a separate partitions. Sometimes it is mandatory, not all the time, right? Sometimes it is mandatory that an operating system needs a separate location to be installed. It doesn't allow the other programs like your other data or other softwares in the same location. Have you understood my point? Assume that you have operating systems, you have other data, you have other programs like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. So you may have so many things, but sometimes some operating systems do not allow the others to be installed in the same location where the OS is, right? So it needs, operating system needs a separate location for its purpose. So definitely you need the partition, right? So these are the three reasons for partitioning. The first one, right? The first one is to save different data in different locations. The second one, when more than one operating systems are used in a computer. Third one, operating systems sometimes need a separate location for their purpose, right? So definitely, if they want a separate location, definitely you need to keep the other things in other locations. So definitely partition is important, right? So I will explain the last point later. Actually, that is not the reason, right? But it is one of the point for operating system. But I will explain, right? These first three are the reasons, okay? Right. So just stop at this point and see my partitions, right? My computer's partitions, right? How to see the partitions? First of all, there are so many ways to get the partition, right? Not one. So first of all, you have to find the computer icon, right? There is an icon called computer, maybe on the desktop. You know, this area is called desktop. Sometimes, look here, I have a computer icon, or even if you go to the start option, right, the computer is found, right? So click on the computer, or in other words, open the computer, right? So this is the one which I talked about. Look here, hard disk drives 3, local disk C, local disk D, local disk E. What are they? These are partitions. Do I have 3 hard disks in my computer? No, right? I have only one hard disk in my computer, but that single hard disk is divided into 3 multiple parts, right? Look at them. They have been given names. Look at that: local disk C, local disk D, local disk E. Even you can rename, right? But I keep the default name. But if you want to rename it, right click and see there is an option rename. Even you can rename it, right? So I don't want to rename, but even if you want, you can put a name, right? Now let's understand our 3 reasons, right? When we have a real partition in front of us, we can easily understand, right? So what is my first reason for partitioning? To save different data in different locations. Look here, I have 3 locations. So in E drive, I could have saved videos and audios. In D drive, I could have saved my educational materials, right? My ICT education or ICT subject materials. Maybe in C drive, I could have saved operating systems and other programs, Word or Excel or PowerPoint or whatever, I can save them. But imagine if you have only one location, right? If it is not partition, there is only one location, right? There are no local disk D or no local disk E. You have only one location. So there is no way. You have to save all of your videos, all of your images, all of your audios, and even all of your educational materials in one location. It is difficult to find it, right? So that is one reason for partition, right? The second reason is when you have 2 operating systems. So in my computer, I have one operating system, right? Listen, I have only one operating system. So In this case, yes, without partition also my computer works, right? But if I want to use two operating systems, definitely I want at least two partition. Maybe in C drive, I can install one operating systems. Maybe in D drive, another operating system can be installed. So when we have more than one, definitely we need partition. Mostly, as a student, you should understand this or you should know this. Mostly, operating system is installed in C drive, right? Yes, you can install in other drive also, but generally, we all install our operating systems in the first drive that is labeled as local disk C, right? Even if you take your computer, your operating system also there. Even if you open, you can find it. See, I open it. So you can find a file. Look at them, Windows, right? So your Windows file is there. Okay, so you can check it. Even other programs also here, right? My Word or Excel or PowerPoint, all of them are in the program file. Okay, right. So that is the second reason for partition. What is the third reason? Operating system needs a separate location. It is mandatory that the operating system needs a separate location for its purpose, right? So where is this operating system? It is in C drive. In my case, or in my computer, the operating system is installed in C drive. So if operating system is in C drive, how can you save the other data? Because operating system needs a separate location. So how to save the other pictures or other programs in the computer? So not all the operating system, but some of the operating systems don't allow the others to be stored in the same location. So definitely you need other locations. So these are the three reasons for partitioning. Try to understand. These can be asked in exams, right? So don't memorize, right? I told you again and again, right, not to memorize anything in operating system. Maybe some of the names, examples, and other things can be remembered or can be memorized, but these things must be understood, right? Well understood. So these are the three reasons. Now I hope that you all understood the reasons, as well as this is how the hard disk is partitioned, or this is how your partition looks like, right? So here you have local disk C, local disk D, local disk E. So in my computer, I have divided my single physical hard disk into three parts, because it depends on the capacity of the hard disk. So I have 500 GB hard disk in my computer. So I thought that it would be better to go with three partitions, right? But suppose if you have more than 500, like 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte, yes, it would be better to create another partition, or another 1 or 2, right? Maybe 4, 5 partitions possible. So it is totally up to the user to decide the number of partitions to be created. But at the same time, it depends on the capacity of the hard disk. If you have a small hard disk, if you have a less capacity hard disk, the number of partitions are always less, right? Maybe 2 better. Okay, so hope you understood the partitions. Okay, so let's continue. Right. Let's take the last point. I already told you that the last point is not actually the reason, but it is one of the points about partitions. In Windows OS, the first partition is labeled as C. Second partition is D, and so on. So even if you had a close look at my partitions, the first partition was labeled as C, local disk C. Second one D, the third one E, right? So maybe fourth one if like that, right? Right. So that is partition. So we discussed the first utility programs, right? Disk partitioning software. Right. Check the second one, disk formatting. This is another utility. Disk formatting. Right. I will tell you this one. Right, look here. When purchase a new hard disk or when you purchase a new computer, your hard disk or your platter looks like this. It's a plain disk, right? Nothing inside. It's a plain disk, right? So once you partition your hard disk, you know we have areas, right? We have locations now in the form of C or D or E, whatever, right? So it is partition, but even after even after partitioning, you cannot save the data in the hard disk. You cannot save the data in the platter. So you need to perform one more action. That is called formatting. So what is formatting? Actually, it is an action for preparing your hard disk to accept the data inside. I repeat it. Formatting is a process to prepare a hard disk to accept or to get the data inside. So until or if you don't format your hard disk, you know your hard disk is not in a state to accept any data. Your hard disk doesn't know how to store data inside. Have you understood? Because your hard disk looks like this. You have two plain areas. Look at them. This is C. Keep an eye on that green area, green plain area. This is C, and inside of we have D. But to change this as a data acceptable state, definitely it must have some small locations which can be called as cells or something. So look here. Once it is partitioned, your hard disk becomes in a different state. Look at the second diagram. This is after formatting. So before formatting, right? So look here, these are plain areas. In a plain area, you cannot keep the data because if it is a data, it must be kept in small areas, right? Small regions, which can be called as cells. So here, look here, once it is formatted, you have small areas like this. Even inside of D, look at them. In the D, you have so many areas. So if your hard disk is in this kind of a state, definitely it allows the data, right? But if it is as a plain disk, it never allows the data. So formatting is very important because it is an action for preparing your hard disk to store the data. So even though they are actually even the partition, even the format, all these things are inside of the computer. No one can see them directly, but you have to get an imagination, right? Take some sort of imagination. Imagine that your hard disk looked like a plain disk first, right? So first of all, it is a plain disk. I have already shown you this one. But once it is partitioned, you have two plain areas. But earlier it is a single area, single plain area. But once it is partitioned, you have two separate areas. But both of them are plain areas. But if they are plain areas, you know, data cannot be saved. So it means that hard disk is not in a place or in a position to accept any data. So we have to change our hard disk to a position or to a state which is ideal for accepting the data, that is formatting, right? So once it is formatted, your hard disk or your platter looks like this, right? So there are small regions are created. If those small cells are created, definitely the data can be saved inside of each cells, right? Inside of each cells, the data can be created, can be saved. Okay, so understand this fact. Formatting is important. So let's take the first one. Disk formatting is the process of preparing a data storage device such as a hard disk solid state drive, floppy disk, or USB. Even I took hard disk for example, but even formatting can be applied for your floppy disk, but now we don't have floppy disk, but it can be. At the same time, it can be applicable for your USB drive, right? And even for other memory cards, you can format. Initial, right, before you start using your pen drive or your hard disk or your memory card, you have to format them, because once the formatting is completed, your device is ready to accept the data. If it is not formatted, it doesn't know how to store the data inside. That may be the problem, right? Okay, but now I have to mention one thing. See, even after storing the data, assume that we format the data, format the hard disk, and we save some data inside, right? I purchased a new hard disk and formatted that, and after that I have saved some data. Now my hard disk has data. Maybe while keeping the data in the hard disk, right, it is possible to format again, because sometimes you may have some issues in those cells, right? Some of the cells may be corrupted. So you need to format it again. But remember, if you format your hard disk or pen drive or floppy disk with data, definitely all of this data deleted. I repeat it. If it is an initial use, it is not an issue, because that hard disk is new, nothing inside. You are going to save something, so you do formatting. That's okay. But what I'm trying to say is, even if you have data inside of the hard disk, it is possible for performing formatting. So what happens if you do formatting with the data? Definitely all these data which are inside of the hard disk be erased, be deleted. So be careful when you want to format your hard disk with data. If you want to format your hard disk with data, definitely you have to take the backup first. You know the backup, right? Backup means you have to transfer, or you have to copy your files in the hard disk to another medium, maybe another pen drive or another hard disk or another computer. That would be the safest method. Maybe after that you can do the formatting activity, right? So look at the second point. A disk with data can also be formatted, right? For initial purpose also, formatting can be possible. In fact, it must be there. But maybe some people like to format their hard disk or pen drive or floppy even with data, because sometimes your hard disk may be corrupted with the data. So definitely they have to format the hard disk and create those new cells again, right? So that is the second one. Third one, when a hard disk with data is formatted, all the existing data will be erased. This is the point which I made earlier. Whenever you format your hard disk with existing data, you know the data will be deleted. So you have to make sure that the backup is taken already, right? After taking the backup, you can do the formatting activity, right? So this is important. So now you have to understand some points. You should understand one most important point. Before you use a hard disk or pen drive or floppy, it is important to format them. So what does format mean? It is an action, or it is a process which prepare the device for accepting the data. If formatting is not done, that particular storage device doesn't know how to store inside. Okay, so with that formatting activity, that particular storage device got to know how to save the data inside. Okay, so understand the fact, right? I have already shown these two diagrams. This is before formatting, but after partitioning, right? So after partitioning, because you have, right, you have two partitions. So even though I say it is before formatting, definitely it is after partitioning, right? but here it is after formatting. It is after formatting because once it is formatted, there should be so many small regions, right? So they have been created. In every portion, the data can be saved. Okay, right. Right. So now, so far we discussed two utility programs. The first one which we discussed was disk partitioning. What is it? Dividing a single hard disk into multiple logical parts. We partition our hard disk for three reasons I already mentioned. The second one, formatting or disk formatting. What is it? It's a process which enables the hard disk or USB drive or floppy disk to accept the data inside, right? Even with data also, a disk can be formatted. Okay, so let's take third utility program, that is called disk defragmentation. Another important thing, listen to me, right? Another important, even in these three areas, right? In these three utility programs, questions can be asked, right? Disk partitioning, disk formatting, now disk defragmentation, right? Before I explain the word defragmentation, I have to explain the term fragmentation, right? Fragmentation or fragmented file. I have to explain this, right? Listen to me. You can read those stuff later, but listen to me and keep an eye on this diagram, right? On this picture. This is a platter, right? This is a platter of the hard disk. You can see it is formatted because you have so many portions inside, cages inside, cells inside. So definitely it is, or it has been formatted, right? Listen to me. So now, if the hard disk is new, right? Listen to me very careful because you have to understand this properly, because this is something which is slightly difficult than the other two. So listen to me carefully, then only you can understand, right? So now assume this hard disk is new. You just formatted the hard disk, right? So it is new. So now if you want to save a file, right? Depend on the file size, it will be saved in location. So now assume I want to save a video. So imagine one part of the video is in this location. Maybe another part of your video is in the location. Maybe another part of the video is in the location. So what happened? I have saved one video, but it, because of its capacity or because of its size, 3 cells were taken. But remember, all these 3 cells are neighboring cells, right? Because they were empty, right? Because my hard disk is new. So all of them are empty. So my file, that single video, has been saved into 3 locations. Have you understood? Listen to me. Right. Now, after some time, I try to save another audio file, right? Audio file. So now assume that my audio file is saved in these 2 locations. So this is my first location, and since the other location also free, my second file is saved in this location. Look here, they are also neighboring cells. Both are closer because they are empty. So my file was saved easily. Now imagine, since it is the beginning time, initial time, most of the cells are free, they are empty. So it's too easy to save those files in a neighboring cells. Even though that is not a technical term, I used to mention them because then only you can easily understand, right? So neighboring cells. But look, so maybe when the days passed, you saved a lot of things in the hard disk. You delete a lot of things from the hard disk. So you save new things, you delete existing things. So what happens now? Maybe after some months, your hard disk is not in a tidy position because there are or maybe here and there are empty spaces. But look, now your hard disk looks neat. Look at the empty spaces. They are closer, right? They are continuous. They are neighboring cells. But listen to me, whenever you want to save new things and whenever you want to delete from your hard disk, your platter doesn't look good. There are empty spaces here and there. You cannot find empty spaces as you find now. Now you find empty spaces as continuous locations. But now, after a few months, definitely, yes, empty spaces are there, right? You have free spaces, but you cannot say that empty spaces are as neighboring cells. Maybe here and there, empty cells there. So now you have to get an imagination, right? Listen to me. In that case, if you want to save a file, okay, like a video file. Now assume that your hard disk doesn't have continuous spaces. Yes, it has spaces, but they are not continuous. Now you want to save a video. Does your platter have continuous spaces for storing your video? No. But definitely your platter has space for storing video. But the problem is there are no continuous cells or continuous spaces for storing your video. So now how can we save the video? Definitely the video will be saved. How to save in your computer? That single video will be divided into multiple parts, right? One video will be divided into multiple parts. Every part is saved in different locations. Have you understood? Look here, now I come to the point. Assume this blue color one is a video file, right? This blue color file is the video file. Assume the others are full, right? They are full, but now in this diagram, they seem to be empty, but you have to imagine that all the other cells are already filled. Remember, these three are, maybe there may be one or two other cells are free, but these three are free. But now what happened? Your single video has been saved into 3 places. How? The single video is broken into pieces. So one piece, right? The first piece or one piece is here. The other piece is here. The other piece is here. This is how most of the files in your computer are saved. They are not in a single place, but we all think that they are in a single place, but no. Maybe at the time when you started to save everything from a new hard disk, is okay. They may be saved in a single place. But remember, as I mentioned earlier, when the days pass or when the years pass, we often save new things. We often delete the things, existing things. So definitely you cannot expect spaces as continuous format. Here and there, spaces are there. So if you have spaces here and there, then how can you save a big file in one location? So you cannot. So this is how files are saved. Right? Now listen to me. The pieces of a file saved in different location is called fragmented files. I repeat it. I already mentioned that a single file is divided into 3 or into multiple and saved in different locations. So according to my example, one file is divided into 3. One part is here, the second part is here, third part is here. So these pieces of a file are called fragmented files, right? So look at them. I have mentioned this fragmented file, right? But we are unable to realize when we use the computer, because when we want to open that video, it as a whole it opens. Even though they are in 3 locations, right? They got together. Tell me, what is the part in your hard disk to read and write the data? Which part of your hard disk is responsible for reading and writing the data? Head, right? Head. So what happened when you want to watch this video? When you click the video, immediately the head, right? the head moves to this part and this part and this part, right? When the head moves towards these three, they open. That video is open as a single file, but we are unable to realize that action, but it happens whenever you open the video. Have you understood? Even though that single file is in 3 places, when you want to watch the video, right, or when you click on the video, your head moves towards these 3 pieces. And now what happened? These 3 pieces are got together and it opens, or they open as a single file, right? So this is fragmented file. Now read and understand. A large file can be broken into several pieces, and each piece may be stored in different places in the hard disk. Each of these pieces is called fragmented file. Okay? Generally, a file is divided and it is saved in multiple parts. Every part is called fragmented file, right? So the fragmented file is possible because, as I mentioned earlier, we often delete and add the new files, right? It looks like your cupboard. See, assume that you have a cupboard in which you have books, right? Maybe at the time when the cupboard was purchased, right, it is empty, totally free. You can arrange your books in an order, right? You can put everything in an order, right? Okay, now assume some days passed, you have full of books or something. So what happened after that? You may get some books from the cupboard, right? You may remove some of the books from the cupboard here and there, not in order, right? Whenever you want to read, you just take it from the cupboard, right? So sometimes you cannot put it in the right place because you may give that book to other person. So maybe your friend, right? So now what happened? There are spaces here and there in the cupboard. You have spaces, but not as continuous. There are spaces here and there because the reason is you have taken books from different locations. Now assume that you have a big book, right? You have a big book, new book, right? There is a new book arrived. You got a new book. It has so many pages. Big book, new book. At the same time, it's a big book. Many pages are there. Tell me, can you put that book in the location now? No, right? Why? Yes, you have spaces, but the space is here and there. They are very small. But if you add all the spaces, definitely you have more than the one that you required. Have you understood, right? You have enough spaces, but the problem is the space is scattered, right? Everywhere. So what you have to do? You cannot break your book into multiple pieces and put them. You cannot do in your cupboard. So you have to rearrange or something, right? That is how your cupboard or your bookshelf works, right? But now it is an electronic medium. So there is a technology, there is a mechanism which allows us to put the pieces of a file into multiple. Even though you have a big file, if there are spaces scattered, it is possible to save that, right? That is fragmented file, right? So having fragmented file is a big problem. Why? What is the problem of having fragmented file? Look here, as I told you earlier, listen to me very careful, right? I already told you that it is something which is advanced than the other two, right? So I have a fragmented file which has 3 pieces. One piece here, the other piece here, the other piece here. Keep an eye on the blue portion, right? Okay. So assume that it is a video, right? It's a video, but kept in 3 locations. It is because of the lack of free spaces in the neighboring cells. Assume this is not free, this is not free, this is also not free. That's why it is scattered. But if they are free, right? If the neighboring cells are free, then there is no problem, right? But they are not empty. That's why it has been broken into 3 pieces, right? Now, I want to watch this video, right? I want to watch this video in my hard disk. To watch this video, what should I do? I have to click on the video. So now when I click on the video, what has to be, done now? What has to be performed? The parts or the fragmented files in 3 locations should be merged or should be got together as a single file. Then only your video opens, right? You cannot open a single part. You need to open your whole video. So to open the whole video, the fragmented files which are in 3 locations must be read by your head, right? Head has to read it. But the problem is head has to move. Look at the place, right? First of all, head has to move here and read it. Then head has to move here and read it. Then now imagine, since those cells are not closer, head definitely needs some time for reading. Have you understood? Because they are in different places. So head takes some space, or head takes some time for moving here and there. Then only it reads those 3 pieces. Once the 3 pieces are read, then only video opens. Now imagine, for this purpose, definitely head needs time. So now you feel that your video takes some time for opening. Even though the time duration is not big, right? But you can feel that there is a time is taken for opening the file. So now you can realize that it is because of the fragmented file. But if the files are not fragmented, right? If the files are not fragmented, files are here. One part here, the other part here, other part here. Now imagine if the 3 parts are closer as neighboring cells, does head take more time? No, right? It is a small move. Okay, I will show that in another picture. Look at this. Look at the other picture. Look here. This is fragmented file, right? One file is broken into 4 pieces. Okay, one single file. Assume the others are not empty. Others are not empty. They have data. That's why it is broken. Now, if it is not fragmented, forget about this word, I will explain later. If it is not fragmented, definitely your file will be saved in the neighboring cell. Tell me which one is easy to read. Is it the first diagram or second diagram? Assume this is a video, one video, but that one video is divided into 4 parts. Here also same video. This is one hard disk, this is another hard disk, right? Imagine, for your imagination purpose, I tell you, right? So tell me which video or which diagram, in which diagram it is easy to read the file. Is it first diagram or second diagram? Which one is easy? Second one, right? In the first one, look here, you need to read this one and this one and this one and this one. So imagine your head has to move to these 3 portions, then only the video opens. But now in the second one, head has to move here, then immediately moves here, then moves here. So now it is in a straight route, right? So while it is moving, it meets all the portions, all the cells. Definitely your video opens quicker than the first one. Relatively, the time taken for reading the video, reading the file is less, right? So this is the problem. If your disk is fragmented, or if your disk has fragmented file, definitely you need more time to open the file. Not only open the file, even for storing the file, which means writing the file also, it takes time, because your file has to be written into different places. So your file has to be broken into pieces and saved in different places. Definitely it is a problem. So now you have to realize that, right? You have to realize that fragmented files are not good in the computer, right? We have to remove the fragmented file from the computer, or we have to reduce the fragmented file from the computer. If the fragmented files are reduced, right, then files are saved in a closer manner, right? In a neighboring cells. If they are in a neighboring cells, anything can easily be read, right? So now you have to do a kind of arrangement. Your hard disk is not tidy, the files are here and there. So now what you are going to do is you have to arrange those fragmented files in a closer manner, in a neighboring cells. So this kind of an action is called defragmentation, right? Arranging the fragmented files as a continuous location is called defragmentation. So what is fragmentation or what is fragmented file? Storing a single file as multiple parts in different locations is fragmented. But when you have fragmented, you got a big disadvantage, right? Hope you understood that. So we have to rearrange the hard disk to store all the fragmented files in a continuous manner. That kind of an action is called defragmentation. So if defragmentation is performed, you know, your file or your parts of a file are saved in a closer manner. After that, the file can easily be opened, right? So you got some sort of knowledge about fragmentation and defragmentation, but I will take some minutes in the next class to complete this defragmentation. It is not completed yet. I just explained the defragmentation process, but I will show one or two diagram to explain the defragmentation process. Right, but I hope that it is possible to understand. There is no much difficulty, but definitely you have to spend some time specifically for this area at home for understanding everything without a doubt, right? So do it. We will meet in another class, right? So thank you.